Hello, everyone, and welcome to Decoding Ancient History, Understanding the Language of Antiquity. An ancient artifact has been interpreted, deciphered, and decoded. The artifact contains multi-layered messages of a metaphysical, spiritual, and technical nature. This artifact of great antiquity reads like a book in stone, a book that can be equated to a technical or engineering manual in stone. Having interpreted, deciphered, and decoded this particular artifact, I am curious as to whether or not certain individuals can bring unique perspectives to this endeavor and contribute to a broader discussion. Previously, in the video trailer for Part 3, I shared with viewers my experience with having ingested iboga root bark back in 1998 in hopes of reaching deeper levels of personal insight with regard to which direction I should take in life. In having done so, it would be a few months later in 1999 that I would begin intuiting the spiritual presence of something or someone that had come into my life. Not long after having made their presence known, this entity would initiate a form of intuitive communication with me and ask whether or not I was ready to get into my boat. It was during this period of time in my life that I had reached a spiritual impasse, not knowing what I wanted out of life. Having grown tired of corporate America and the career path that I had chosen, I felt a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction. I was at a loss, not knowing what I wanted to do. So, in this video trailer for Part 4, I am picking back up with the storyline where I decided that I would try my hand at becoming an author and write an autobiography about my life. Recalling that I had read an article about writing as a form of therapy, I began setting aside some time to develop an outline that would assist me in organizing and building the overall theme of my personal narrative. Well, what started out as my intention to chronicle and document my life as a real-world narrative of personal experience soon began to take on a different tone. It would be at various points during the course of my writing that I would look at the unfolding of the storyline and determine that some form of automatic writing seemed to be taking place, kind of like my soul expressing itself through pen and paper. Many pencils, pages, and several notebooks later, I would find that I had developed a storyline whose narrative was steeped in symbolism. The storyline begins with me living in a house at the very end of a long, winding pathway which winds its way across the valley landscape of my soul. At some point, I make the mistake of crossing an established boundary and find myself eating strange fruit from a forbidden tree. Upon eating this strange fruit, I experience a shift in perception, and everything that had previously defined the inner world of my being was shattered. As a result, I began wandering aimlessly without purpose, having been disconnected from the inner world that I had always known. In order to reclaim the fragmented pieces of myself, I decided to embark upon a journey of the soul in search of what I had lost. As I set about the long winding pathway across the valley landscape of my soul, I find myself picking up the pieces of the shattered and broken self that I had become. Determined to put my spiritual Humpty Dumpty back together again, I go about collecting the shattered pieces of once upon a time in hopes of forming a picture of what used to be, hoping to be made whole once again. As I continue in my sojourn along the winding pathway, I eventually come upon a great rift within the valley landscape of my soul. Finding myself standing on the precipice edge of the rift, I look out across the expanse of the Great Divide, where it becomes plainly obvious that some sort of disruption had taken place, having left in its wake a trail of great destruction. For as far as I could see, the great rift snaked like a wide chasm of division that had ripped across the inner landscape of my soul. From where I stood, I looked down at the shattered and broken pieces of myself that I had collected, wondering how this division could be healed. Having shared a portion of the preceding narrative from my book, Some viewers may be wondering as to why I am sharing this story and what this story has to do with the interpretation of this petroglyph. Well, it just so happens that I used to live in an apartment complex by the name of Hall Tree Apartments, and during the time that I lived within this apartment community, the owner of the complex decided to have several trees removed from the rear of the property so that the apartments could be seen from the street below. However, many of the tenants couldn't understand why the landlord wanted to have the trees removed because it was during the summer months that the trees provided shade to the apartment units located on the backside of each building. In a conversation with my next door neighbor, my neighbor made it known that she wasn't happy about the removal of the tree in the back of her unit because the tree not only provided shade, but it helped to keep her apartment cool in the summer heat. It was during the course of this same conversation that my neighbor turned to me and asked me, "Do you know why they cut down the tree?" Now, considering the fact that we had just had a conversation about the reasons as to why the landlord had decided to have the trees removed, I found her question odd. Kind of like asking why George Washington decided to chop down the cherry tree. Anywho, I will pick back up with the storyline related to the writing of my book in a following video trailer. In the meantime, it is in part 4 of this video series that viewers will learn about concepts related to the process of division, which results in defining specific areas within the field. As above, so below. As within, so without. To learn more about the process of division and its effect within the field, watch part 4 of Ancient Messages in Stone, Decoding the Assyrian Tree of Life. Well, that's it for this video. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and don't forget to hit the notification bell to be notified when we post new videos. Until next time.